The other day I posted online, Adam Sandler is the Shakespeare of our generation. Changed my mind. Now, I assumed that we were all in agreement about this, so I immediately closed my computer and walked away for it for several days. But when I came back, I was surprised to find that actually quite a few of you thought that I was wrong.
We hit the moron jackpot!
CD Alice 88 says, change your mind, I'm not a surgeon nor a psychiatrist. You may have a brain problem is what I'm getting at. Give6 says, well, I'm calling 911 because whoever wrote this obviously just had a massive stroke. Well, it looks like I may have to explain myself a little better. But first of all, did anyone agree with me or? Send Help says, well, Shakespeare wasn't a good actor, just a writer, so I'd have to agree with you. I'm glad that we agree, but I do have a minor issue with your comment. Sandler co-wrote many of his best movies, including Billy Madison, Happy Gilmore, and The Waterboy, so he is an accomplished screenwriter as well as a talented actor. Others decided to expand on the idea. Sir Leibowitz says, and David Spade is Einstein. Now, to be honest, before I read this comment, I thought David Spade was only an actor and actually had no idea that he was a scientist as well. But if you think that highly of his work, I will add him to my list. Okay, our generation's greatest minds are being assembled. Anyone else agree with me? Adam says yes. Fart jokes of only the highest caliber, a true flatulence aficionado. Now, this is a great point. And one of the reasons I made the original statement. Both Sandler and Shakespeare loved fart jokes. In Comedy of Errors, a character says this: a man may break a word with you, sir, and words are but wind, eh? And break it in your fence so he break it not behind. In King Lear, Shakespeare also describes a storm like this: blow winds and crack your cheeks. Rage blow. So I have a feeling that old Willie Shakespeare knew exactly what he was doing with that description. And if he could see Kevin James perform a burp snart in Grown Ups 2, I think he might smile a little bit and sincerely say, my work here is done. Now, I feel like I'm making a pretty good case, but still some people seem to disagree. Forrest Lara says, hell no, I guess he isn't even the Shakespeare of his house. Now, I thought about this comment for a long time before realizing that our friend Boris is obviously a Jackie Sandler fan. Jackie and Adam met on the set of Big Daddy and were married in 2003. Since then, she's appeared in almost every single Adam Sandler film, and she always gives a good performance. And it seems like they have a very healthy, happy marriage.
That guy is still the biggest horn dog.
So she could easily be the Shakespeare of the house, or the Anne Hathaway. No, the other one. Yes. That one. So, anyone else have something to say? Well, No says, that's like saying Nickelback is the Beethoven of our generation. You know, personally, I don't really like their music, but this was a very popular comment, so welcome Chad. Let's everyone welcome Chad. So, everybody must be on my side now, right? Well, not quite. XX Ziploc XX says, how about this, ScreenRant? You show me a piece of work from William Shakespeare that is even remotely comparable to Jack and Jill, and I might just agree with you. You know what? That's a totally fair request. Jack and Jill is about an ad executive named Jack, played by Adam Sandler. Jack is annoyed by his sister Jill, also played by Adam Sandler. When Jill comes to visit, actor Al Pacino is extremely attracted to her, and that's the plot. Pretty stupid, right?
Where is she?
Al, I don't know where...
Where are you hiding her?
Well, let's not jump to any conclusions. Jack and Jill echoes the plot of Shakespeare's Twelfth Night, where twins Viola and Sebastian are separated by a shipwreck. Viola disguises herself as a man, and a countess named Olivia falls in love with her. The story was even adapted into the comedy She's the Man. Now, She's the Man might be a better film than Jack and Jill, but the setup for both the film and the original play is not that different. And if you're not yet convinced that Sandler and Shakespeare are comparable, please remember that Shakespeare wrote a comedy where a guy named Bottom gets turned into a donkey, and Adam Sandler wrote a movie where the son of the devil does battle with his brothers for control of the throne of hell. So, you know, who's writing better scripts here? John Irwin says yes, and Tommy Wiseau is the next Stephen Hawking. You know, I haven't heard a lot about Tommy Wiseau, but again, I trust you guys. I assume he's a brilliant physicist. That emoji you use must be Tommy looking up at the stars in order to study them. But let's get back on track. A lot of you also brought up actors like David Spade, Rob Schneider, and Kevin James as a way to diss Sandler. Ben Phillips says, I heard the Sandler is actually an illiterate businessman, and all his movies are actually performed by David Spade using the Adam Sandler identity as cover to not spread himself too thin. Grim Dolo says, no one who keeps giving Kevin James work is capable of anything good. And Audrey Epburn says, wrong, that title belongs to Rob Schneider, who else has played literally almost every race known to man. Now, these comments were trying to make fun of Sandler for always hiring the same actors, but I actually think it strengthens my point. Just like the actors who would perform Shakespeare's plays, Adam Sandler has formed a modern-day theater company. Sandler's friends like Spade, Schneider, and more SNL alumni than you could count crop up in his movies over and over again. In a majority of his films, even the minor roles are played by the same handful of actors, like Sandler's pals Alan Covert and Peter Dante. It's truly in the theatrical tradition, as actors in theater companies will perform several plays as a group, taking on the roles they are most appropriate for. Audiences aren't just returning for the main star, but supporting players as well. And I can't think of a better example than the relationship between Sandler and Steve Buscemi. Since they starred in Airheads together in 1994, Buscemi and Sandler have collaborated 14 times. And it's no exaggeration to say that in those 14 movies, Buscemi is usually the funniest part. Every time I see a Sandler movie, I eagerly wait for him to show up.
This was during the so-called disco era. For me, it was more the doing mushrooms era.
And if Sandler did Macbeth, Buscemi would probably play Banquo, or maybe he would play the porter. You know what? And Kevin James would play Macduff. I think we're actually onto something here. Let me know down below in the comments what your Sandler lineup for Macbeth would be. Anyway, Mr. M.A. Campbell says, won't dismiss the argument, but when he actually tries, he is a good actor. Thank you, Mr. M, and yes, I totally agree. In dramatic films like Punch Drunk Love, The Meyerowitz Stories, Funny People, and Uncut Gems, Sandler shows real commitment to his characters and surprising emotional depth. In my humble opinion, he's also very funny in all 4 of those movies.
Sorry about what I did.
Sorry.
Even if you hated all of Sandler's comedies, which is a perspective I just don't understand, you'd have to admit that movies as a whole would be worse off without him. No one else could have played Barry Egan or Howard Ratner in the way that he did. Dyson Card says, Quentin Tarantino is the Shakespeare of our time. And that is a totally valid pick, Dyson Cards, but do you know who's a big Adam Sandler fan? That's right, it's Quentin Tarantino. Tarantino's been friends with Sandler since the 90s and even appears in Little Nicky.
Here he goes.
You make the Lord very nervous.
All right.
In fact, the director has such a high opinion of Sandler's acting that Sandman was the first choice to play the Bear Jew in Inglourious Basterds. Sandler only passed on it because he was filming Funny People at the time. This is 100% true, you can look it up. Someone even made a deep fake of it. Who else could be the Shakespeare of our generation? Well, Bruce Willis says Ryan George is the Shakespeare of our generation. And you know what? No one can really argue with that. I'm adding him in. Everyone welcome. Matthew Franz says he's holding Yorick's skull, something that actually prompts him into action. The speech itself is about indecision. Delivery is fantastic. I use it with my students. I assume, Matthew, that you are referring to the image I posted with my original statement, meaning that you show your students this moment from Billy Madison as an example of fantastic delivery. Honestly, I don't think I can prove my point better than that. You are an actual English teacher. And yet, a challenger approaches. Ashley says, the idea is that in Shakespeare's time, he was looked down on because his plays catered to the masses, instead of trying to be pretentious. There was a lot of lowbrow humor and sexuality that critics looked down on. I understand where the post is coming from, but I'm not sure Adam Sandler is it. Ashley, I appreciate you for helping me, even though you don't fully agree with me, but this is pretty much exactly how I feel. Shakespeare never intended his plays to be just for the academics or the upper class people. He wanted his work to be entertaining, and he included lots of crass and silly jokes in most of it. Video essayist Broey Deschanel actually did a fantastic video on this topic recently. You guys should probably go check it out. Adam Sandler's work may not be considered high art, but that's a good thing. It is supposed to be for everybody. And even if Adam Sandler's not your thing, maybe it's something else. Maybe it's Love Island, maybe it's, Angry Birds. People probably looked down on Chuck Jones in the 40s for making kids cartoons. But now Looney Tunes is studied as some of the best animated comedy of all time. So who really knows what we will be studying 50 years from now? Because it probably won't be just the movies that win awards. In conclusion, Adam Sandler is the reincarnation of Shakespeare, but
The information might have been a little more useful to me yesterday.
well, that's our video. Did we convince you? Would you like to try and change my mind or join in on the conversation? You should check out the community posts on the ScreenRant channel page, and you can let me know why you think my brain should be replaced. All right, see you next week.